Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we are in game number 1 of this best of 5 series. We're going to be spawning up here in the top right hand corner of the map atop the red Protoss player from Root Gaming. Give it up for the American puCK. And his opponent spawning up here in the top left hand corner of the map, the blue Terran player from Team Elevate. Give it up for Elevate's MaSa, the Canadian Terran player. But okay, Frost, definitely an interesting map. It's one of the maps that does lend itself to a little bit more of the, not just, War Prism or even medevac harassment, but just in general, aerial harassment is a pretty big thing on this map, just because when you end up seeing the third expansions being taken, you're either taking this third expansion, which has a nice little ridge over here that makes it awkward for ground units to travel back and forth between, or you're taking this expansion, which has a very long ground pathway, but very short for air. And it's definitely one of those maps where you do have a nice kind of aerial harassment, but looks like MaSa going to try and take advantage of that very, very quickly. Already going for a very fast factory in this game. I wonder if we're going to be actually seeing a similar push that he did versus Bales. It wasn't on this map, I don't believe, but it was still that kind of weird siege tank with 9 or 10 Marines and I guess some SCVs building bunkers right outside the Protoss natural expansion. We might see something like that again. I really do wish that I knew a little bit more about that push, if I had been able to pay more attention to see the gas timings and everything else, but for now, just Marines being produced right now, so does seem like it could lend itself to that. And the meanwhile, puCK is scouting around and sees that, hey, you're not in the bottom right, you're not in the bottom left. I know you're in the top left, but I'm not going to bother sacrificing my probe to get the scat out on that. So he sends it back on home. He's going to rely on that Adept to get the scat out. And I think that the Adept should be okay. You should be able to shade past any of these initial Marines. And the big thing is going to be scouting out and seeing that there is no natural expansion down. Starport immediately coming on out. Oh, don't think we end up... I think we should have seen a Tech Lab if he was going to go for the really fast siege tank play. Looks like in this game it's just going to be a really quick Widow Mine drop instead. This is a pretty old school style thing to do. It's what I always like to call back in Heart of the Swarm. It is slightly varied, of course, because Legacy of the Void, different economies, different game, plays out a little bit differently, but I used to call this the Drunken Boy style in Heart of the Swarm, just because you would move in with a handful of these Marines and the Widow Mine, and the Hellions actually would be coming in. You make a couple of Hellions, and you just run them into the natural expansion. The drop comes into the main base, and a Protoss player that is playing a little bit too greedy on too many units does end up having a very difficult time dealing with both bits of aggression at the exact same time, especially if they also got out detection. Now, this has been made a little bit easier to defend against since Mothership Core with Photon Overcharge, being able to throw it out on multiple pylons, unlike what you could do in the, I guess, the early days of Heart of the Swarm and everything, where only one Photon Overcharge went down, and it went down on the Nexus, so a little bit more limited in a lot of ways. In Legacy of the Void, yeah, you can just Photon Overcharge, and if you focus fire down the Widow Mine, you will kill it before it burrows, but puCK's not going to have to rely on that. He has an Observer out. Now, what he does not have are a lot of units. He only has 3 Adepts. Going to have to try and deal with this very, very well. It's going to take some expert kind of micro on this, as Photon Overcharge is going to be very important, but already using up one of them. Widow Mine going off on, I believe, a probe. So well-sacrificed probe over there is going to allow him a little bit more breathing space with these Adepts. But one of these Adepts already very low on health, and MaSa's doing a nice job just kind of denying the travel between main base and natural expansion. Widow Mine's going to be coming off of cooldown relatively shortly, but guess what? The Observer's over there, and MaSa knows it. He backs out of there, not going to allow himself to take any major losses. But here's that siege tank that we were talking about. Siege tank did come out. War Prism is coming out behind this for puCK. That's going to be actually very, very surprisingly useful over here in just the micro against this aggression. Pylon is going to get focus fire down, and MaSa is continuing the pressure. There's no natural expansion behind this. He's looking to try and end the game. Liberators are coming out. There's already one Liberator in the mix. Cyclone comes out. If that Cyclone gets a lock onto that Mothership Core, oh, puCK could end up losing a lot of these Photon Overcharges. He's already getting a big lock on right now. It's going down very, very quickly. The Mothership Core is going to end up falling. The Liberators do get taken out, or at least one of them in the front lines. Pro's being pulled off the line. The tank gets pulled a little bit further back, but 19 workers have been killed so far, and even though puCK kills off the Liberators, he kills off a lot of the units, he even kills off the SCVs building the bunker. Somehow MaSa still holds on with the siege tank, and with some nice micro, even keeps the siege tank alive with 4 hit points left over. puCK is losing more and more ground. Another Liberator comes in. GG gets called, and MaSa claims another Protoss head with that build. Taking game number 1 in this best of 5 series. Damn, that is a scary looking push in. That is just so scary. And it's not just about necessarily like what the push in does. It's about the way that Protoss players tend to play, where they tend to, during that exact period of time, they are generally the ones that are getting up the tech. And they're kind of going a little bit lighter on gateway units. They're maybe even trying to push out across the map themselves with those adepts and try and keep their opponents at home. And that's a really great way for MaSa to try and mix things up. Just, you know, you don't do that every single game, but you throw that out and it forces your opponent to play a little bit more cautious. All right, well, we are going to be hopping into the next game. Game number 2 is going to be on the map King Sejong Station. We're getting the players involved into the game. MaSa takes a 1-0 lead in this best of 5. You know, I was a little bit concerned just because it was going to be only 4 series casted over here today for BaseTradeTV, and I was thinking like, oh man, you know, it's only 4 series. That's going to be a pretty short day. It's a really, really short day, but I guess the fact that the games kind of got held and now it's only 1 game happening at a time, it's not nearly as bad as I thought. It is going by like a little bit slower, and we do have more games, like the series are close and everything, so it's not nearly as like quick of a day as I thought, it does make me a bit happier because I think we got started almost like 2.5 hours ago, and we still got this series to finish up, as well as the next series versus Hydra, facing off versus the winner of this series. But here we go, ladies and gentlemen, King Sejong Station. We're hopping into it. We'll see you guys there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're hopping into it. Game number 2. Before we get started, I do want to give a little bit of appreciation to one of our fantastic mods who has been manning the fort tonight. As it has been pretty much, I think he has been the only mod in the chat today. So really do appreciate all the hard work, man. Much love to all the mods in the BaseTradeTV chat, of course. But definitely a lot of love goes out to Mr. Boris Makarov. Really, really awesome guy. So thank you so much, man. Definitely appreciate it. But here we go. Game number 2, ladies and gentlemen. We're hopping into it. Top left-hand corner of the map, we have the red Terran player from Team Elevate, sitting up 1-0 after a bit of cheesy play in game number 1. Give it up for MaSa. And his opponent spun down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. We have the the blue Protoss player representing Team Root Gaming. And even though he's down 0-1, he's still got a lot of opportunities to bring this back. Give it up for puCK. And my oh my, you know, I was saying, MaSa, that build, that sort of style, that one base attack, it can be pretty strong, but something you'll probably want to use with hesitance, because you don't want to overuse it. You don't want to have it be that thing where your opponent can just predict that it's coming out, and then they probably just get up earlier defenses, and you're a little bit further behind, because you're pretty all in with that. It's a 1-1-1, effectively all in. But MaSa going for a faster factory once again, going for the fast starport, going for everything that looks pretty gosh darn similar. And here's the thing, there's a lot of players out there that when they hit a cheese these days, they say there's no way my opponent would do that a second time in a row. There's no way they would do that. So I'm actually just not going to let their mental mind games phase me. Because a lot of times you throw out the cheeses to say, no, you got to play safer than you normally would. You got to play more defensive. You got to make sure you're not cutting any of those corners you normally would. And a really good way that a lot of, I guess, players out there, the high-level players, will try and account for that is they say, no, I'm not going to let you dictate the way I play. So they don't really play more defensive or anything. puCK, on the other hand, is not actually going up to a faster robotics facility. He's going up for a Twilight Council this game. He's getting up a faster blink. So this is going to play out a tad bit differently. There is a natural expansion command center going up eventually, but this is a bit later. This is not the same build that MaSa is doing. So despite all my talk about, you know, oh, MaSa could be really throwing something out for puCK to just see the exact same type of build and really put the pressure on, it's not going to be the same. It is going to be a really fast drop over here with this Widow Mine as well as the Marines. It's going to be a fast one, a Liberator follow-up. But puCK is going to have a different set of tools to deal with this, and with the robotic facility only just now getting started, he's going to be relying on killing off that Widow Mine before it pops, or just sacrificing workers at the right moment to deal with it. Widow Mine is going to burrow effectively. It does not actually just get set off. Really, really well done over there from MaSa, unburrowing at the absolute last second to make sure the probe does not set it off, so the Marines can kill it off instead. He still has a live ammunition that's ready to fire. And puCK is left with no mining as natural expansion for a little bit, so MaSa can play a little bit of catch up during this time. He's producing 2 workers at a time. He's building another siege tank, and remember, the Liberator is also coming out behind this as well. So puCK shades on in. One of the Adepts does end up going down to the Widow Mine, so not too many losses over there for MaSa. Only 2 Marines and a Hellion, kills off 2 workers and an Adept, but also just forces out a couple of units. And here we go. We got part 2 coming out over here as the Liberator now going to be charging on in and making it so much harder to actually deal with not only the Widow Mine over here, but even just these Marines. Marines can get focus fire down with the extra range over there, but I mean, as soon as these Stalkers try and get a little bit too far forward to try and deal with the Liberator, they're also going to get, if they try and blink forward, they're going to actually be blinking onto a Widow Mine. And that makes it a lot harder. So he has to wait until the Observer's out. Now he can finally blink forward and deal with the Liberator. Unfortunately for MaSa, he does not unsiege that once he notices the Liberator is, or sorry, the Widow Mine is gone. So he ends up losing the Liberator, but definitely did a really nice amount of damage, because anytime a Protoss player is on even workers, more or less, with a Terran player, and the Terran player has multiple bases, well, the Terran player got those mules, and he's even got the tech out, so it's not even like he's behind in that regard. I really do like MaSa's position quite a bit, despite the fact that they are even on workers. puCK seems like he's not super happy with how this game has been going in that regard, so he's going to try and move across the map and see what damage he can do. He does have blink research. He's got the War Prism coming out, and he's going to be able to do little bits of chip damage, and that will also be very nice. Even if he forces a couple of SCVs off the line to repair up the bunker, repair up the siege tank, can cause a lot of problems. War Prism's making his way across the map now. No gas guys are taking over at the natural expansion just yet for puCK. I want to note that, because that is going to say, you know, puCK is probably going to be able to afford more of the Adept Warpins, more so than the Stalker consistent Warpins. Although he is actually only sitting on 3 Warp Gates, so you can really afford 3 Warp Gates worth of Stalkers off of just 2 bases worth of gas, but he is not really going to have a whole lot of gas left over to do big transitions. And oh, one of the medevacs does end up going down. MaSa poaching out a little bit too far forward. That it does kind of sting, just because those these siege tanks are going to need to be maneuvered around using the medevacs. And we got a big blink up into the main base, and guess what? puCK finds a really nice opportunity. Widow Mine shot does go off and does a lot of softening up on some of these Stalkers. Kills off one of them, but 6 of these SCVs have already fallen. And guess what? A lot of the production now going to be under his attack. Siege tank gets re-sieged up over in the main base. The tech lab does survive, just barely. But puCK is not done just yet. He's even warping in Zealots of all things, saying, you know what, I'm here to stay for a little bit. I'm here to get some nice trades. And even actually those siege tanks firing on the Zealots, killing a lot of his own workers over there. And puCK manages to escape with a handful of these units. Does end up losing a good chunk of the Stalkers, but I mean, he trades out versus them at least. He trades out versus the army of puCK, of MaSa, as well as some of those workers. 3rd expansion coming on down for puCK behind all of this, which MaSa has not gotten started up. MaSa does have the +1 weapons upgrade that's getting started pretty soon. There it is. So puCK is really just going to be looking to try and buy as much time as possible. Whereas I think MaSa is just trying to build up as big of an army, a scary, scary army they can push out across the map with, and maybe take a 3rd expansion with. We'll have to see. That's kind of still in the cards for MaSa to decide how he wants to play that out. But a lot of gateways being added on, robotics bay being added on, and puCK just having the Stalkers over here, I think, instills a lot of fear into MaSa. Here we go. MaSa is getting ready to move out. He's got a lot of Marauders. Man, this is a, I mean, considering the size of his army, like a decent chunk of this army is Marauders. When you have almost as many Marauders as you have Marines, I'd say you have a pretty Marauder heavy composition. And puCK has a mainly Stalker heavy composition, so I think Disruptor Shot's going to be very, very important. The Immortal's going to be very, very important as well. But here we go. puCK scouts out and says, oh, you're moving out right now? That's cool. Well, so am I. I'm moving into your base. Blinks up into the main base, and look at this. There's an all-out retreat back. Big stim coming out for MaSa. And he even actually ends up taking quite a bit of damage on that starport. Unfortunately, puCK doesn't end up focus firing down something like the reactor that maybe could have been focus fired down. I guess there were a lot of SCVs potentially that could repair it up, so it doesn't want to even bother with it. But still, picking off the reactor would have been really nice, slowing down the medevac or even liberator production. Finally, looks like puCK is going to back on out. The observer over here has just added so much value with being able to just buy an extra minute and a half, as well as even pick off a couple more of those workers. puCK spouts the move out once again. He's going to try and utilize these stalkers to get some chip damage. Uses the blink actually pretty early on. Much earlier than I thought he would. It looks like he's going to go for a big engagement over here. Disruptor goes for the shot. Only gets one SCV, but managed to get both of the Liberators in exchange behind it as well. Big stim up forward. He is looking out for blood. He kills the Disruptor. He sieges up the siege tank on top of the army. He has absolutely no fear and does take a pretty good trade over there. Disruptor shot number 2 is going to be coming in the mix. MaSa immediately stims out and backs up. Here coming the siege tanks, and I think this is going to be the big scary moment. A lot of workers just ended up dying because of the War Prism harassment behind this. So if puCK can hold on, he's going to be in a really nice spot. He has a third expansion also. Time warp goes down of all things, so going to try and delay these units from retreating from the Disruptor shots. That's a really nice combination that you don't see too often. And these Adepts, I mean, they basically cleaned house on that worker line. Now puCK blinks forward. He blinks forward aggressively. He's going to need to focus right down the Liberator with the Stalkers. He does not do so. The Marauders take out a majority of them. The Disruptors get focus fired down. MaSa is still not giving up just yet. +1 weapons upgrade still in the lead for MaSa, but that lead is going to be gone very, very soon, as in about 20 seconds, he is going to be finishing up his own +1 weapons. Nice pickup over there, avoiding that Disruptor shots. He is also going to be able to kill off that natural expansion, so there goes the base, I guess, advantage that puCK had, but still, there is a better mining economy going on in favor right now for puCK. MaSa is replenishing the SCV, so he's not all in just yet. In fact, he can actually lift up his main command center, float it over to the third, and still actually have probably equivalent / better-ish mining than puCK if he's able to replenish that worker count. Siege tank does get picked off over there with a combination of the Disruptor shot and a big blink forward from the Stalkers, but the blink comes at a cost, as he does not have it to retreat on out. Concussive shells also finished up fairly recently, so MaSa is going to continue to get better and better trades, but +1 weapons also finishes up for puCK. Adept's getting ready to shade on in. Is he going to let it finish? The Stalkers also decide to blink on further down. Liberator actually getting some decent shots off on some of these Stalkers, but a decent chunk of the buyout comes in to reinforce. I think that MaSa may have enough with some good micro. He needs to keep the siege tank alive. Does end up losing it, but it seems like he just may have enough behind it. The bioforce, the medevacs are basically completely dead on energy, but it's just barely going to be enough. Liberator gonna be able to siege up this army, and I mean, if he takes out this pylon, there's no reinforcements that come in over here. He's gonna be relying on the Stalkers blinking down to the low ground. There they go. They blink on to the Liberator, trying to take it out, but the workers are starting to fall. MaSa takes a lead, and he takes the game. Now taking a 2-0 lead in this best of 5 series, 1 game away from victory. All right, and with a 2-0 lead, this puts puCK in a very, very scary situation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be hopping to a short little break while we find out what's going to happen in game number 3. I'll let you guys know the map before we hop into it. It is going to be Ruins of Endion. So we'll see you guys in Ruins of Endion in just a little bit. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, forgive me if there's a crackle, as that sometimes happens when I unmute myself immediately, but we are hopping straight into the game as it's already gotten started. Spawning down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, 1 game away from moving on to the potentially last round of this entire qualifier. We have the blue Terran player, Team Elevate's very own MaSa. And his opponent spawning down here on the bottom left-hand corner of the map, the red Protoss player, sitting down 0-2 and needs to win now 3 games in a row versus a player that just 2-0'd him. It's a hard life, but can he do it? Give it up for Root Gaming's puCK. Almost said MaSa again. It's just Root Gaming's MaSa flows off the tongue. But alright. MaSa has shown that he's not afraid to go for these 1-base builds, and because of that, we have puCK going for the very early scout, going for the gateway scout, not waiting around for Cybernex core or anything else coming out. And this probe is not really going to be able to see a whole lot. The Marine does take it out very quickly. He sees that there was a gas geyser, but he doesn't necessarily know if the factory got immediately plopped down afterwards, unless he was able to read in some kind of timing that I'm just unfamiliar with, which I suppose is always very much a possibility. But alright, MaSa comes in over here. He sees, yeah, nothing super crazy. puCK is not about to, you know, go totally on tilt and just all in me or something. And there's not like a proxy Stargate coming out. So he's going to probably feel pretty good about how this game is going and how this series is going so far. As again, sitting up 2-0 is a pretty nice spot to be for MaSa. Now, want to note, the loser of this series still walks away with $800, but the winner goes on to face off versus Hydra, where that is going to be one of those final matches in the losers finals to determine who gets that WCS Summer Championship circuit spot, and who just instead actually also $1,200 for second place, by the way. First place obviously already went to Neeb yesterday, who won in the winners bracket, but $1,200 for second place and $800 going to third place, as well as fourth place. All right, so we got robotics facility coming down over here for puCK. Got another gateway. Nothing too crazy, it looks like, as he may just be going into War Prism harassment once again, something kind of similar to what he tried to do in game number 1, or even, I guess, what he tried to do in game number 2. And puCK, I would say, in that last game, there are points that he was looking pretty strong, because it seemed like he had held on against a lot of the early aggression, but man, MaSa just made some serious damage happen with that big push in. He took a really, really good engagement, taking out that natural expansion, and just securing that spot. Oh, 3 workers killed off of just, I think that was 2 Hellions? Yeah, sorry, 4 workers killed total, since I guess that initial scouting worker was killed off by the Marine. So MaSa already probably feeling pretty good about how that little harassment went. He got a scout out, saw the robotics facility, saw the unit composition that was being made, which is primarily adepts, which is different than we normally, I think, have seen in some of these games, where sometimes it seems like puCK has opted a little bit more towards some of the stalker compositions, opted to go for like blink and such. But this game, we're going to see War Prism coming out once again, but Twilight Council, I think this may be a little bit more likely to be a resonating glaives opening rather than just a blink opening. We'll have to wait and see. puCK may still just kind of do light adept pressure with the War Prism and just instead go still into blink stalkers for the Liberator defense. But here we go. Resonating Glaives is being researched. We got Siege Tank being made once again for MaSa. He's been loving these early Siege Tanks. He's also been loving a lot of the early Cyclone follow-ups, but Siege Tank is going to be made inside the main base. Widowmine immediately hidden off on that War Prism, so the War Prism going to be very low on health, and it's actually going to have to back up. It doesn't even really get that much damage done. In fact, it kills off 0 workers total. And now MaSa is alerted to the fact that there are these adepts being made, that the War Prism is here. He probably has some idea of the fact that, yeah, there's a good chance that my opponent is going to be getting up Resonating Glaives as well. I mean, if he's made all these adepts, especially if puCK ends up going for any kind of additional warpins over here, it's going to pretty much solidify his knowledge of this. It looks like this Widowmine is off cooldown and in a very interesting position. There is an observer over here, so, of course, puCK does scout it out, and if he's very, very careful with his Warp Prism, he can also react in time, pull that Warp Prism out of the range of that Widowmine before it goes off. But after the Widowmine is alerted his attention to the fact that it exists. But I mean, I love the fact that MaSa just has these Widowmines kind of sprinkled around in very dangerous locations. Keeps moving them around and is just never content to just let it sit for too long. Almost gets the lock on over there. That would have actually been a kill if he was able to get that. And that would have ended any sort of form of aggression from puCK. But he does keep it alive for now. Has a bit of a difficult time, I guess, in the sense that he only has one kind of retreat path out. And it limits the surface area that puCK can kind of come in on. But he is buying time. He's getting up a third expansion pretty safely behind this. And that's kind of the big thing. This kind of walling in also not really working out super well right now for MaSa. Man, if the Widowmine actually was going to reburrow somewhere, I would say reburrowing around here would maybe make a lot of sense, but here we go. Looks like MaSa going to try and establish that third expansion that he did finish up. Loses a couple of workers here and there, and I would say that puCK has kind of done his job with this attack. Definitely equalized off of any sort of worker losses he took earlier on, but puCK is going for a bit of a greedier play behind this. Look at this. He's not got a lot of units behind this. He's got 2 Immortals, got a High Templar, and just 4 of these Adepts out, as well as even just some of the Observers out. But he really just doesn't have a standing force. If you imagine MaSa's army could just teleport to puCK's side of the map right now, he would just kill puCK. It wouldn't even be a competition. Photon Overcharge, whatever. You can't Photon Overcharge your main base, your natural, and your third expansion very effectively. But, I mean, the big problem is that MaSa has to stay at home to deal with the Adept harassment and the War Prism, which the Viking is trying to find right now, but the War Prism has juked its way down to the south side. So really, really well done by by puCK. He's buying himself a lot of space and getting up some really scary tech behind this. I mean, this fast of a storm with upgrades like Blink and Resonating Glaze and +1 weapons all finished up, and even getting up that Immortal count, I think could cause MaSa a lot of problems. This is one of those times where you just don't want a Protoss player to just be able to power like puCK is really doing right now. It's not only Liberators coming out either behind this. It looks like a scan goes down, killing off the Observer at least, but I'm also going to try and work on those rocks so we can start to move out across the map and maybe get some damage done. Maybe some push and pressure on. puCK hasn't really knocked down his rocks, but with these Immortals, if he decides to, he can knock him down very, very quickly. I mean, the High Templars are not going to be super helpful, but High Templars are going to be helpful for Storm that they're going to have energy for relatively shortly. Yeah, I know he had some High Templars around earlier on. No, I guess... Where did those High Templars' energy go? I don't think any like drops or anything got fed back. No, it doesn't look like any medevacs got fed back. Medevacs are all sitting at full health and everything, so... I could have sworn he had High Templars out earlier on that should have had more energy, but, well, regardless, he does not anymore. And he does have Storm finished up now. MaSa establishes his third expansion. Of course, puCK has a full vision of pretty much everything that's going on for MaSa's army. Big stem up, gonna take out the fourth expansion, as puCK is gonna be the one that moves out across the map. He has a lot of these Adept with Resonating Glaives, but he also has the High Templar and some of these Immortals. Positioning is gonna be very key, because I do actually like MaSa's army a little bit better just in terms of raw size. And with the army positioning over here, I think MaSa's gonna be able to engage into a very, very wide open area. This isn't gonna be a big choke point where the Storms are gonna be able to land and really deal tons of damage to MaSa. It's gonna be one of those positions where MaSa has area to back out of the Storms and bait them out. He does end up backing out as he doesn't want to engage into too weird of a position, but War Prism warps in a couple of more of these Adepts, going to be trying to make their way into the main base while puCK establishes a fourth expansion, but so does MaSa. It's a pretty even game so far. MaSa has the army size lead, but I would say just the tech lead kind of goes to puCK a little bit more. He has that scarier form of tech. The Liberators are starting to come out, so I would say MaSa's getting to the point where puCK has got to be a little bit careful. But puCK, the reason why he's also still behind is that he's investing into Disruptors. The Disruptors are also going to be causing a lot of problems. When you do have a Terran player that's not only trying to dodge Storms, but also trying to dodge Disruptor shots, it can cause a lot of problems. But look at this. We got a big drop in the main base right now for puCK. And these Disruptor shots are, again, going to force a complete lift up. Widowmine goes off, kills off a couple of these units, but here we go. MaSa also moves into the natural expansion, moves in between the third and the natural. This is going to be a really, really weird spot for puCK to try and deal with, because now he's going to have to move through the Liberator zones. His fourth expansion is almost guaranteed to go down unless he moves in right this damn moment. He does not move in time. The third expansion is now being dropped, and puCK is losing workers. He's already lost 19. He's going to be losing even more over here as the drop just says, yeah, I can pick up. Because guess what? I got my Liberator sieged up right outside your third and right outside your natural expansion. I've done the damage I needed to. He's even supply block puCK is going to cut into that production a little bit. And MaSa is almost completely maxed out, but his army is very much stemmed up. Where are the medevacs? The medevacs are sitting on a little bit further on the backside of this army, and it looks like most of the Liberators are going to get taken out, as well as a good chunk of the ground force, it looks like, for MaSa. Yeah, some of the Immortals are going to focus fire down now, but MaSa's in an all-out retreat, and did he lose a little bit too much? He still has a very heavy army supply, and he's got those 4 bases that have been mining now, or at least the fourth expansion starting to mine, but 26 workers going down. MaSa just straight up has a better economy. If puCK has a good enough army composition to walk across the map, and to deal with these Widow Mines, oh boy, that's a really rough loss. And man, really cute play. MaSa being so annoying, even saying like, well, you don't have the Observer right now, so I can unburrow this, reburrow it somewhere else. puCK not gonna let that happen, but I mean, the more time MaSa has, the scarier of an army he gets back up, because he has the economy to do so. Disruptor shot acting out pretty well so far for puCK. And I mean, puCK's not taking the worst engagement over here, but he needs to take a really good engagement. He needs to be getting a good enough engagement that he walks across the map and potentially wins the game. And he's not quite getting that. Snipes off a Liberator, gets an okay Disruptor shot, but loses his Immortals. Gonna lose a Disruptor very soon, and all of his Stalkers, are a majority of them. Concussive Shells is researched, and MaSa is able to lift up some of these Marauders and says, yeah, well, I mean, whatever, dude. You don't have a 4th expansion. I do. That's the difference between us. I'm sitting up 70s supply right now, and a lot of that is in army supply because puCK is relying on disruptor hits. And if that disruptor count builds up largely enough, yeah, this can be something you can do. But I mean, disruptor goes down. He cannot afford to lose any disruptors. Big disruptor shot goes off on a lot of these Marauders, and I mean, it's starting to look a little bit better over here, but gonna lose another disruptor. As this army actually gets smaller and smaller, it's harder and harder for the disruptors to actually get good, efficient hits off on them. Oh, puCK is in a world of trouble right now, and remember, this is game 3. This is why puCK is not giving up despite being down almost 70, 90, 100 army supply right now. This is his last shot. If he loses this, he gets knocked out of WCS Challenger. He loses, and MaSa is going to be the one to move on to face off versus Hydra. So he's got to make it work with what he's got. Both disruptors get focus fired down. Looks like a couple of workers got killed off. I think that may have been with deliberate harassment, or it may have been with the army over here. But either way, GG gets called. MaSa moves on to face off versus Hydra in the qualifying match. Well done by MaSa. He takes the 3-0 solid, just sweep over puCK. And I won't say that the games were totally one-sided. They definitely weren't. Had a bit of a mix-up of the different type of builds as well. You had like the 2 different types of kind of quasi one base all-ins. One of them did end up leading into something a little bit more economic, as he did end up expanding off of it, but still a very fast tech up to the quick Widow Mine drop with the Liberators coming out really quickly. But definitely really, really aggressive play coming out from MaSa. So, ladies and gentlemen, that does leave us with one final series for the night. It's going to be, again, MaSa versus Hydra and a Zerg versus Terran Seas. That is still going to be a best of 5, but this best of 5 determines who walks away with not only the WCS Summer Championship circuit spot, but also who walks away with $1,200 and who walks away with just $800, you know, not a lot of money or anything, right? Like, that's not already bigger than a lot of first place prizes for the tournaments you see that are purely online these days. So we're gonna be back in just a little bit, so don't go anywhere. You guys are watching BaseTradeTV coverage of the WCS Challenger League for North America.